On September 20th, 2019, a grand army made up of Facebook's best and brightest are planning on storming, raiding, and revealing the secrets inside of one of the most heavily guarded and mysterious military installations on the planet, Area 51. I don't think the appearance of this siege is any kind of coincidence. Alien-related stories have actually been popping up in the news fairly frequently, and there seems to be a resurgence in public enthusiasm for UFO-related phenomenon. Right at the end of May, you had the New York Times reporting on a declassified video from the US Department of Defense that showed the gun cam footage of an FA-18 Super Hornet pilot as he tracked and followed an unidentified flying object that kind of looked pretty alien. And the History Channel's accompanying release of expose docu-series Unidentified, which was produced by pop punk messiah, this is not a fucking joke, Tom DeLonge.
And he goes and zips down your zipper and grabs the dick and goes, "Oh, Mr. Inky." It happened to me 3 times last night.
The timing couldn't be any better to try and see them aliens. This isn't even mentioning the recent podcast with human covered in olive oil, Joe Rogan, that featured Bob Lazar, which we'll get to later in the video. Actually, if you take away anything from this video, I'd like it to be the information actually surrounding Lazar. So if you want the timestamps to jump directly to that are right down below.
Believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs.
It's pretty fucking cool. In today's video and in preparation for the raid, we're gonna be talking about the history of Area 51, some of the crazier conspiracy theories that surround the base, and that fateful day in September. The seeds of the base were planted in 1942 with the opening of a small US Air Force auxiliary airfield called Indian Springs. Eventually in 1955, the CIA would pick this location in the middle of nowhere as the test site for the super secret Lockheed Martin ultra high altitude reconnaissance aircraft, the U-2. Area 51 doesn't have really any significant reason for the number. It was added to the cumulative region known as the Nevada Test Range near the Nellis Air Force Base. It was called Paradise Ranch for obvious reasons. They literally named it that to try and trick people to move there. It was literally just a dry lake bed in the middle of fucking nowhere that sucked.
Fucking hot, man.
During the early 60s, the base was also a test site for the Lockheed D-21, which was a supersonic unmanned reconnaissance drone. Like a drone like we think of as like a new thing right now. They were testing that in the 1960s. Area 51 was also used to test technology that was actually alien to the US government. During the late 60s and like the throes of the Cold War, we actually recovered some captured Russian MiG jets from a dude that surrendered them. It's a whole other thing. Really interesting. Tons of rabbit holes to follow on this video. But basically they wanted to evaluate them for weaknesses and exploits that US pilots could use against them. The Soviet jets and the programs around them were bizarrely named. They were called Have Donut, Have Ferry, Have Drill, and Have Idea. Pilots would fly these vodka-fueled potato planes against American F-4 Phantoms in a series of tests that would, interestingly enough, lead to the creation of the US Navy's Top Gun program, which is one of the most elite fighter schools in the country. Plus, Scientology Golden Boy Tom Cruise's best movie ever.
Tom Cruise used a witchcraft only to get the fire off me!
Wrapping up here, Area 51 was also associated with the development of the B-2 stealth bomber and the F-117 stealth fighter, not to be confused with the Ice-T movie of the same name. Please go watch it. Here's a clip.
Put me in jail. No, motherfucker. We're gonna do it right here. Right now. All right, Mitchell, let's party.
In the early 80s, the base was also rumored to be involved with Project Aurora, which was a supersonic stealth aircraft. But this was probably just Steve Jobs working on the iPhone or some other bullshit, since this base has been doing crazy forever. The site is still an active military installation, and to this day, what goes on there is under top secret classification and is unknown to the public. Of course, secret spy planes from half a century ago are not why so many millions of people have gravitated towards Area 51 over the years. I know you guys know about this story. This is probably the most famous one, but in 1947, during the summer, a rancher came across a bunch of metallic debris on his property, just about 30 miles north of Roswell, New Mexico. He contacted the Roswell sheriff, basically saying that he had no idea what it was. The sheriff then contacted the Roswell airfield, basically saying this dude found something that he couldn't explain, that he thought was probably military, and they basically asked the military to come and clean this shit up off his lawn and to not litter so much. Paraphrasing, obviously, but there's a ton of interesting details to this story. But to get to the point, a nuclear test surveillance balloon from Project Mogul crashed on this guy's land. The Air Force base that claimed jurisdiction of the debris were basically brain dead. On what PR was, they accidentally called it a flying saucer, which the local Roswell newspaper then reported on. This came at a time in American history when the flying saucer craze was just starting to take off, and with all of this, you have a recipe to a massive belief in a government cover-up and conspiracy, and the overwhelming belief that aliens crashed into the United States' most boring state in 1947. Years later, Area 51 would be connected to the Roswell incident from reports that claim the wrecked saucer and yeeted alien passengers were taken to Area 51 to be studied, which then bore the legend of Area 51 possessing alien technology. I'm gonna be frank with you here, and I mean no disrespect. I personally believe the Roswell, New Mexico incident to just be a dead meme at this point. That being said, you can't discredit its massive contribution to the cultural awareness of ufology in general. It basically kickstarted everyone caring about aliens. The dead horse has been beaten to a point that it's dust, and that dust has been remade into a UFO-shaped frisbee that Alex Jones probably wouldn't even chase anymore.
It because I don't like gay people. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Every detail surrounding the crash has been scrutinized to an almost comical level of detail, and there's been so many bad actors that have perpetrated hoaxes around the incident that it's just kind of spoiled all credibility, in my opinion. Simply put, the United States crashed a nuke balloon on some guy's farm and then accidentally said it was a flying saucer because they were probably hammered in the desert flying warplanes because this was the 1950s while smoking more cigarettes than your stepdad Kent.
What the fuck?
What are we supposed to watch now?
Watch each other!
Such a dick!
The story here that really interests me, though, through like 2019 lenses, seems a lot more credible, are the claims made by physicist Bob Lazar. There is a ton to unpack with Bob Lazar and almost no way to cover everything that he's said over the years. So I'm going to do my best to give you like a general overview, but I encourage you to check out the links in the description below to more videos of him going over things in details. It's insane. Before I get into this, I kind of want to give you a disclaimer on how I feel about everything. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think Bigfoot is real. Anti-vax moms make my brain physically fucking hurt. And I don't think that aliens live among us. I genuinely do have a love for science, though, and I do believe that extraterrestrial life and maybe even intelligent extraterrestrial life exists somewhere in the universe. The story of Bob Lazar is one that has recently completely captured my imagination. I was slightly aware of at least his name in the past, more than likely from drunkenly waking up at 3 a.m. to whatever garbage fire was on the History Channel at the time. I didn't know his story. I had kind of only heard his name and knew it was related to UFOs. That being said, the recent Joe Rogan podcast, I heard his story and dove into everything else that I could find out about the guy, and it's fascinating. To put it in a nutshell, from 1988 to 1989, Bob Lazar claimed to work as a technician at an above top secret facility on the Area 51 complex known as S4, where he and other scientists studied, analyzed, and tried to reverse engineer alien spaceships. His claim alone is insanely easy to laugh at and dismiss almost immediately, which is what most people did at the time. However, there's one detail of the conspiracy that kind of makes it really hard to shake and kind of gives these sobering implications too. Bob Lazar came forward to say that he worked at Area 51 to a Las Vegas news station in 1989, and the US government would not even claim that Area 51 existed until 24 years later in 2013. In fact, Lazar is solely credited with bringing the public's attention to the existence of Area 51. This is a lot to take in, but it goes even deeper. The thing about Lazar that I and so many other people personally find so appealing about him and his story is that he comes off as this no-nonsense kind of skeptic guy.
Believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs. I don't follow stories or,
Even after your experiences?
No, I'm fascinated with the technology, and it irks me like every night I go to sleep that, that it was my own doing, essentially, that that prevented me from continuing on in the project.
Just listening to this guy talk, you can absolutely tell that he's a science nerd, like through and through. And he's said multiple times over the years that he's not a UFO guy. In fact, he's like mentioned that he gets super annoyed at conspiracy theorists. Very few details that he's related over the years about his experience at Area 51 have changed at all, and almost every interview he's given since has been the same one. When he speaks, and if you go watch some of his videos or listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, he has this like irresistible quality to him where he's just so funnily matter of fact about his experience at Area 51. The best way that I can describe him is if like your own father worked at a top secret military installation. He's got this like dad tone of voice, these dad mannerisms. When he looks at you, he has this like half interested, half annoyed, "You're wasting my time, I could be watching the Bruins game" kind of thing going on. He said multiple times that while he was working at Area 51, he could give a shit about alien beings and was more so enamored by the technology that was on display there. He was very much a self-described kid in a candy store. It's really, really compelling shit, and it's hard to not believe him. You want to. That being said, let's suspend our disbelief for a second and just kind of go over a general overview of some of the claims that Bob Lazar has made about aliens and his time at Area 51. At the time of his employment in 1988, the US government was apparently in possession of 9 different alien spacecraft, all of which were of different models and designs. He was told in initial project briefings from the military that the aliens that built these ships were from the Zeta Reticuli star system, specifically the third planet, 40 light years away or so. He kind of commented that he had no idea how the government knew that, and that they also implied that a couple of the ships were over 10,000 years old. He claims that the ships were powered by element 115, which is called Moscovium. Moscovium would not be discovered until 14 years after he made this claim in 2003. Apparently, to traverse space at faster than light speeds, the ships generated, amplified, and projected a gravitational wave and subsequent space-time distortion. I don't know what I'm talking about. In 1989, gravity was thought to be caused by theoretical subatomic particles called gravitons, not gravitational waves. In fact, it'd be 26 years until a gravitational wave was ever even observed and then proven to exist in 2015. One of my favorite parts of all his stories are that he claimed to have gone inside of one of the ships. He said on the outside it looked like a fairly typical flying saucer design, and that on the inside it was completely empty, the ceilings were super low, and that the only thing inside the ship was the reactor in the center of the room, surrounded by 3 seats that were too small to be comfortably used by human adult males. Make of that what you will, that's terrifying. The hull of the ship was also completely smooth, there were no gaps, as if it was all just one piece. Everything was one color, a kind of muted gray pewter. One of my favorite quotes that Bob has consistently said over the years: when he went inside the ship, it felt ominous, like he wasn't supposed to be there.
Right, they had a poster, and it looked like a commercial poster almost, like it was lithographed and you could buy it at a Kmart or something. But they were all over the place, and it had the disc that I coined the term the sport model. It was lifted off the ground about 3 feet at Area S4 on the dry lake there, and the caption on the bottom said, "They're here."
Bob has gone over so many details of his time at S4 and Area 51. This does not do it justice. Absolutely fascinating. It reads like a science fiction novel, and if you want to check out more, there's links in the description to check out videos of him going into insane detail on everything he saw. Bob was eventually fired from his position at S4 after being caught taking his friends out onto the test range at night to observe and film the spacecraft as they made flights around Groom Lake on Wednesday nights. Apparently he was privy to their flight schedules, and he just thought it'd be cool to take some of his friends out and film some shit on the super secret military base that he worked at. Each person who was present at these sessions claims that they saw these craft, and there does exist footage that Bob Lazar himself took, but it's hard to tell if these are advanced alien spacecraft making radical movements or a cat flinging a Christmas light across the room because it's a 1989 handheld VHS recorder. This, in my opinion, is where Lazar's story gets to be a little murky and where it allows for tinfoil hats to come out. I personally have a hard time believing that this dude who worked at a top secret military facility thought it was chill to just bring his friends out onto the range and film that shit. This doesn't jive with me at all. I don't know how he wasn't instantly arrested or killed. As he described it, the government just kind of told him to fuck off and fired him, which led him to immediately go to that local news station and tell the entire world that aliens exist and that someone had done goof. Lazar does try to explain the unlikeliness of this by describing the branch of military that he was employed with as kind of like this slow-moving, aloof, disorganized kind of institution, inadequate in leadership and a lot of turnover rate. Said that it seemed like they kind of believed that the people that were working on this project were kind of disposable and that they didn't really care about some random scientist just getting cut loose on the project. He also then describes them as extremely paranoid and very protective of secret information, which completely goes against everything he just said, and it kind of gives me this weird feeling of blue balls. After Bob went public in 1989, the military discredited his claims of working for them, and there was no record of him working at his previous job, which was supposedly at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, where he worked as a physicist on nuclear weapons and advanced propulsion systems, apparently. The colleges which he claimed to have graduated from, which were respectively MIT and Caltech, also had no records of him ever being there. Bob says that conveniently this is because the government was trying to expunge all records of him to discredit his claims, which makes sense with the tinfoil hat on. Records actually were eventually released, though, by a Las Vegas investigative journalist named George Knapp, who showed a newspaper that listed Lazar as a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. That's the only real hard proof evidence. MIT and Caltech have, to this day, no record of him being there, being part of a professional body. As far as I can tell, with my personal digging, Lazar has never showed his diplomas from MIT or Caltech, which would be, in my mind, the easiest way to just vindicate yourself and prove that you went there. He's never done that. Commenting on why he's not currently rotting in a maximum security prison for exposing state secrets and compromising national security, Bob, in his very trademarked matter-of-fact doesn't give a tone, thinks that because of the media circus that surrounded him and the subsequent dragging his reputation through the mud actually created a massive public disinformation campaign that actually aided that branch in the government in creating secrecy around the project. It's just like a whole thing where they're like, yeah, he's crazy, right? Yeah, none of this is real. And Bob was like, what the fuck? He claims to hate the attention that he's gotten from coming forward with everything, and that he only came forward in the first place to kind of expose the government out of disdain for keeping all this incredible technology behind closed doors, as well as insurance in case he was assassinated by the government. He said that he's never tried to profit from his experience directly, and any money that he's made indirectly from it, he's tried to donate to local programs that work with the youth and science. Super dope. He now spends his days in Michigan with his family, where he runs a scientific supply company called United Nuclear, which has a website straight out of 1997 and has been reprimanded or raided by the CPSC and other regulatory government bodies at least twice for shipping radioactive materials to unlicensed customers across state lines. Bob Lazar does not give a shit, and I love it. If anything, the story is a practical approach to a fantastic tale, which kind of offers a moment of escapism from our shitty planet, which I appreciate immensely. I, for one, am excited to see what happens in September. If you're planning on raiding Area 51, please be safe. What could be a tongue-in-cheek poke at our own government keeping secrets from the people that pay their salaries could quickly turn into bloodshed or more people in cages. I laugh, but anything could happen. Holy fuck. Let's see them aliens. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I haven't posted in over a year, and I've never done a scripted video, much less one on some kind of pseudoscience or information. I don't fucking know. This subject kind of took me by surprise, the fact that it was trending and being talked about so much, and I found myself passionate about it, so I wanted to make a video. If you like this kind of content, I'll make more. I'm planning on getting back into YouTube, at least for 2 more videos, and then disappearing for another 2 years. They won't always be this kind of scripted content. I'll do more of my usual like sit down and talk to the camera kind of things, but I felt weirdly passionate about writing and recording this video, so I hope someone took something away from it. It's fun to think of the world as being a way that we don't know it to be. Whatever, I don't have a series name for this yet, but I'm Brady Shuhai, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.